Hello, 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 and we are live. What's going on? It's your boy Billy Wroe. Woo, man, it's Friday. Just got paid. I don't want to get copyright infringement, so that's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, what's going on, you guys? Welcome to the first row. It is Friday. Your boy Billy Wroe. We are here for a special segment tonight that will be coming periodically on the first row and sometimes on the Black Heights Network. This segment is called The Game. I want to welcome each and every one of you to this special segment. What is the game? I think we got to jump in, but before we jump in on what the game is, I got to introduce the co-host that we have going on. And this is when I say co-host, I think we're both co-hosts in this particular segment. So I'm going to introduce the secondary co-host, a man who almost needs no introduction on his third appearance on the first row. One of my brothers at this point, I'm just going to call you one of my brothers, Antoine Wade, Mr. Antoine Wade of Black Heights. Can you say hello to the people?
What is going on, people? I am glad to be back, my brother. Thank you so much, man, for inviting me tonight. And I'm looking forward to giving you guys the game, man. Let's get this thing started.
See, I feel like a lot of people have wasted the game on trying to pick up girls and pick up guys. But we're gonna give them that corporate game tonight. So I'm with that, giving them the game. So really quick, as with any new segment or any segment that we do here on the first row, I'd like to explain what it is that we are doing, what the purpose of tonight's show is. So the game. What is the game? The game is how to thrive in corporate America. So if you think about any board game, any game that you would play, there typically comes some form of strategy in order to win the game. Even in luck and chance games, there's people, they have their strategies that they believe help them win those games. So the game, How to Thrive in Corporate America, really is about helping to develop strategies, sharing pro tips on how to advance your career, advance your marketability in the corporate workplace. And this actually transitions, whether it's in the corporate workplace, it actually transitions well into the entrepreneur workplace, because even in the entrepreneur space, there is a game that has to be played in order to gain market share. So with that, tonight's topic is going to be becoming irreplaceable in today's workplace. I'm not even going to tell you what we mean by the topic. We're going to dive right into it really quick. If you could, Antoine, please explain who you are, what you do, what Black Heights is, and why you feel, because I know why I feel you're qualified for this particular segment, but why you feel you have qualifications to bring pro tips to the game.
Awesome. Yes, I will, sir. My name is Antoine Wade, and I'm the founder of Black Heights, which is a management training and leadership development company, where we have a vision to prepare African Americans for upward mobility in the corporate world. I've been in the corporate world for about 15 years, rising through the ranks, taking on my first management position after I entered the corporate world in 3 years, and continue to rise the ranks to become a vice president at a corporation. Now I'm in a sales development. I've led teams all around the world, and I think I have a little bit of experience, Billy, to share with the people on how to navigate through the corporate world, because I've done it.
Right. No, and Antoine, I don't know why you're always so modest when you're talking. Antoine just got back stateside talking about, I've done a little bit of work here and there. No, he just got back stateside this week. And so that's one thing I want to thank you for, is being committed. And Antoine has displayed this from the very first conversation that we had. Regardless of what he has going on, once he commits to something, man, you don't even have to lose sleep over it. And trust me, I've had a long week where I could have had plenty of things to worry about, but one of the things I was not worried about was, will Antoine be on the show when he said he'll be on the show? So I appreciate you for that, knowing that you're dealing with some time zone adjustments. So with that, let's jump straight into it. We got a couple of people already in the live chat. It looks like Brother Bruce and Brother Mark Anthony are both in. I can't see the number of people that are actually viewing live, but for those who are here, just go ahead and start chiming in. If you have questions, if you have stories, share them, ask them, because it's going to be a good ride tonight. So with that, let's jump right into it. This is going to be back and forth. You guys are welcome to join in and mix up the pot. Let's jump into, I guess I should tell them a little bit about who First Wroe is. I'm sorry. I'm used to if you're here, you should know.
Tell them, Billy. Tell them. You got to tell them, man.
If you're here, you should know. That's what I'm going to tell you. First Wroe, in tonight's segment, I want to say First Wroe is about the hustle. And I don't mean the hustle is the scam. I mean the hustle is the grit, the grind, the work that's necessary for success. First Wroe is really a network that is about growth, self-reflection, making yourself and helping yourself to become the best possible person that you can be. There are a host of content providers on the First Wroe and growing. There are tons of different types of stories, different avenues and walks of life that show up on the First Wroe. And this is just another part of the collective vision of First Wroe to get exceptional, excellent stories to you guys that can help you in the areas that you're trying to grow in, and also help bring in the component of feeling like we're not alone in the experiences that we're having, realizing that we all have struggles, we all have our own doubts and fears and things that we have to address sometimes on a day-to-day basis. But at the end of the day, our similarities are more prevalent than our differences from one another. So that's what the First Wroe is about. It's about bringing you guys this type of content that you can take and share with your friends and actually hopefully change lives versus just having a good laugh. You'll get some good laughs because we're fun people, but it's really about changing lives and changing behavior. So that's what the First Wroe is about. We're jumping into the game, how to become irreplaceable in today's workplace. The topic that I would like to start with, Mr. Wade, and I'm going to give you the floor first, is when it comes to becoming irreplaceable, there is a level of appreciation that you can get, like an increase in value that you can get. And then there's this depreciation in value. These two things kind of always play at odds in the corporate world, in the workplace. And so as they're playing with odds, or as they're at odds with each other, one thing you do in work may bring you up, one thing you do in work may bring you down. And overall, in the middle, you have what I would call your net brand, the net brand that your individual self has, or the persona that you have in the corporate environment that you're in. So for you, can you tell me what your experiences have been with that appreciation and depreciation? And then not just the experience that you've had with it, how have you mitigated those waters or managed those waters of increasing your value and trying to minimize the amounts of areas where your depreciation is taking place?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is this, Billy, is if you have a good perception of yourself that really propagates itself to others, I think most people are going to show and see an appreciation for you. So what do I mean by that? From an appreciation standpoint and controlling the perception, it is being professional, right? There are certain things that falls into the be professional category, and things like, how you dress, right?
Right.
How do you carry yourself, right? Things like, how do you communicate? How do you interact with your peers? How do you interact with your seniors? Those are all the things that kind of falls into the perception bucket. And if you do things very well in all of those categories, you're going to be really appreciated. Now, when it comes down to the depreciated perspective, those are that's the area where you don't want to be known for. You don't want to be known for any skill set or any value that you bring to the table that depreciates you. And you think about this, right? In order for you to be depreciated, you are a person that can't deliver. You are a person that, it probably isn't good to work with. And you're probably a person that likes to get into, drama and not very well to work with within the corporate America. So you always want to fall into the category of being appreciated. And a lot of the things that you can do really comes around the perception, which is, an area that you can control yourself.
True. No, I think you hit that right on the head. Is perception is everything, especially in corporate America. People perceive that you are your work ethic is lackluster and perceive that you don't bring solutions to the table. Typically, you're not invited to the table when solutions are being drafted. It's like, well, why would we bring this distraction to the table?
Right.
of producing solutions. So perception, and it is an area that we can control. We may think it's, oh, well, I can't control what somebody thinks of me. No, you can't control what somebody thinks of you. However, what you can control is what you present for them to think about.
Yeah. Yes. Well, and you think about some of the controllable things, right? And just like I talked about, how you dress, that is something that you can control, right? How do you communicate? Those are things that you can control, right? And when I talk about communication, I'm talking about like using proper English, right? Using written communication that's precise and concise. Picking up the phone, don't overthink it. Keeping your message simple. Those are all the things that really can help, control the perception about you. And those are controllable behaviors. And not only that, Billy, just interacting and working well with others. That is something that, you can do. And if you do those things well, such as be friendly, be curious, being professional. And I use that professional all the time because it is quite broad, but let's take a step back to being curious, wanting to know more about your team members, wanting to know more about your manager, being friendly, asking them how their day was or their weekend was and things like that, to where they see you as an asset on a team and somebody that creates a harmonious relationship or a harmonious team in an environment, right? Those are things that you can control yourself, and you can control those things. You're going to have a positive perception about you, man.
Yeah, absolutely. And what you're bringing up are the non-tangibles of corporate America that they absolutely increase your value. If I know that I have somebody that, as a leader, that I have somebody that I can go to in confidence and that remains confidential, I'm more apt to go to them with things. Hey, I'm trying to figure this out. You're somebody that I trust and respect. I know you might be even in a hierarchy perspective below me, but I want to bring you up here to have this conversation about whatever it may be. And having those confidential conversations and keeping that confidence shows, hey, this is somebody that I can actually go to, and even if I have a potential solution that I'm trying to vet out, I can vet it out to them and not have the worry about, oh, somebody else now is saying, oh, well, this is their solution and this is what I heard about it and it's stupid and they're not even sure about it. No, you give them that confidence, you give them that safe environment that they can come to, and even if you're managing the expectations up, they're able to come to you and say, hey, this is what I'm seeing. These are the thoughts that you shared with me. Here are my thoughts back to you. You run with that the way you see fit. I'll support you 100%. That is non-tangible. You can't put that in an employee handbook. You can't put that into a corporate policy. So I think the appreciation and the depreciation is very much found in the gray areas, we're going to say, in that employee handbook. So we got this document that says this is how all things are supposed to go for all employees, but there's so many gray areas, from the way we dress. Okay, well, I've worked in environments where there's a no open toe shoe policy, yet people are being sent home for wearing open toe shoes. Like, what the heck? I mean, unless it's the only pair of shoes you have in your closet, that should not be something you're being sent home from or sent home for. And because you're being sent home for it, what it is doing, it is depreciating your irreplaceability, because that means I can find somebody who doesn't even own open toe shoes, and now they have one leg up over you because it's something that I'm not going to have to deal with them, that I am now dealing with you. So that is one of the areas of, for me at least, of appreciation and depreciation. There are those non-tangibles. It looks like we have a question here in the chat. I struggle with being, it's from Bruce Gatewood. I struggle with being too friendly. Any tips for not getting too close but remaining friendly? You wanna shoot at that one, Antoine?
Yeah, I do. Right. I think one of the things is when you're seeing that you're too friendly, you're probably just getting too comfortable. You can be friendly, but just don't get too comfortable. And what I mean by that is, when you're friendly, you can ask the surface questions to get the answers, to get to learn about people. But what I mean by getting too comfortable is you don't want to be that person that, shares knowledge about people with an entire group. right? You don't want to be that person that's known as the loose lips, right? And a lot of people see that as being friendly, being a person that everybody talks to and things like that. But if you're a gossiper, that's not really being friendly. That's meaning you're being too comfortable. And that's an area that you don't want to do or be in at all. Be friendly, but keep it really, I would say, in the professional world, keep it at the surface level. I hope that answers your question, Bruce, man.
Yeah. I would like to add to that as well.
Sure.
There is that, like you said, that comfort that we get, and you start to allow your professional persona to dissipate a little bit, and you begin to reveal your regular relaxed on the couch mentality. But the friendliness actually is an okay component.
It
is very much when you start forgetting that you are not speaking to a friend. Even if you are speaking to a friend, if you're in a work setting, you are still speaking to a coworker. And I actually experienced that at the last organization that I worked in. I was recommended by somebody who was in management, who was a friend of mine. I mean, like, friend of mine from as long as I can remember. We lived in the same neighborhood on the same street down the street from each other. And so there was a closeness because we already knew each other. However, we had to be aware of the type of conversations that we were having. Like, I couldn't be out on the floor talking to her about something that I would talk to her down the street when we were kids at the house. But at the same time, I didn't, like, hello, and I wasn't very, like, robotic with her. I showed that, hey, there is a relationship here, there's value here, but at the same time, it's that balance of value. So you just you can't lose track of what or who your coworkers are in the setting. In the setting, you're my manager, you're my supervisor, you are my coworker. Outside of the setting, even if we had a blow up professionally inside the corporate setting or inside the workplace, outside of that, hey, how are you doing? So how's the family doing? Those were two separate worlds. And so you do have to have a clear distinction between that personal aspect and that professional aspect. And I've had friends from our coworkers who have transitioned over to the friend side. And while we were still in the coworker space, we were very professional. We were very articulate. There was no favoritism in that. There may have been some personal bias that comes in, but there was no favoritism. And because of that, now as friends, we're no longer in the professional setting. Now as friends, our friendship flourishes because we remember what it was when we first started interacting, and both of us had a clear, concise understanding of when we're in the office, we talk about office stuff. We stay and stick to the business. When we leave the office, or if we go to lunch and it's just he and I, then we can now talk about personal stuff, and we don't have to have that same professional presentation crispness with each other because we have familiarity with each other. But that is something that we have, not something that we have within the organization. So
yeah, that's a really good point, Billy. I think a lot of it comes around just the professional environment, right? If you know to keep it at a professional environment, you're not going to get too friendly. And a lot of it, and what I mean by friendly, and Bruce has something very funny in the chat. I want to get to that too. But what I mean by being friendly, because a lot of the times, we as African Americans, we do fall into that friend zone very comfortably because, of our nature. A lot of African American men, especially in corporate America, are very easy to get along with. I think African American men in general are pretty easy to get along with. But what I mean by friendly is more than having a positive energy, right? You want the person that you're around and the people that you're around to want to be around you, right? And what I mean by don't get too comfortable. Like I mentioned, don't be the gossiper. Don't be that person that has loose lips, and don't be the person that dates people within your organization, right? I don't think that's an area that people just don't get. And I know a lot of times it's very difficult, but you don't want to be that person that dates anybody within your organization. You don't want to be that person, to be honest with you, dates anybody in your company, because there's something that's going to happen. I always had this rule, and I always was told this rule that it is not a good idea to date anybody in your company. You see how a lot of these corporations and these executives, a lot of them have gotten terminated for doing something like that because there's policies and stuff like that that's written in handbooks that tells you that you can't do it. The other piece of it too is I already mentioned be curious, Billy. And what I mean by be professional at all times is a lot of times, right? In the professional world, you will have people that is going to try you, right? You're going to have people that going to think that they're a lot smarter than you, that may not want to listen to you. And that typically the listening part happens when you're early in your career, when you're just like a junior employee. And you're going to have people that challenge what you say and what you do. And I think the biggest thing there is you just want to always just assume a positive intent, right? And keep it professional at all times. So there's going to be times that you want to, fly off the ringer and say something and potentially even do something. But it is in your best interest to keep it professional and keep a level head and just, check it when you need to check it, but keep it professional, right? And then if I was to say one other thing, Billy, I know I have a long airtime. It's probably because of my jet lag right now. But be participative, right? Go to happy hours and things like that. Have lunch with your team. Try not to be the life of the party when you go on these happy hours and these events and things like that. You want to be in your best behavior. You want to still maintain your professionalism, but do be part of the group. Be a part of the group, my man. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. No, there's a fine line between isolating yourself, and actually incorporating yourself into the culture of an organization. Yeah. And both have their overabundance of what is it called? Their saturation points. Yeah. Where you can isolate yourself too much, and now all of a sudden it's like, okay, we need to get him out of here because every time he comes, he's off in a corner, or she comes, she's off in a corner. And then there's he's never at his desk because he's too busy talking and chit-chatting and chit-chatting with everybody. So there is a balance that has to be brought in. That's a balance that I actually had to learn in corporate America because of that charisma, that comfortability that people have with me. It's like, okay, I'll be sitting and working, and they'll come and start talking to me, and I'm like, okay, I want to be respectful and engage with you, but I still got like work to do because my job is I don't get paid for talking to you. Yeah. So there is that balance. And the other thing that you kind of started to hint on was what I would call individual stereotypes. And I use individual stereotypes is because people have prejudices and biases towards you as an individual that have some of it has to do with what we are taught in society, what we believe from a society lens, but other things have to do from what we see of that individual. And so that dating and dating coworkers, man, that can greatly impact your individual stereotypes. Now, instead of it being so as a male in the workplace, instead of it being that I'm genuinely compassionate about people and genuinely care about the situation that this person may be going through and really want to help them succeed in their career, because you are now dating people in the workplace, now it's like, oh, he's lining up his next target. Especially if it's the opposite sex, if I'm attracted to opposite sex, same sex, if I'm attracted to same sex, that now becomes it tarnishes and creates a stereotype that I don't have genuine intent of corporate or corporate development. I have an intent now of sexual or promiscuous interest. And so that aspect I learned a long time ago. People be like, oh, I think you're kind of cute. I'm like, oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. But I don't talk to people that I work with, and they're like, oh, well, it's just, you and I. And I'm like, well, if you're really interested and you're willing to quit your job, then maybe we can talk. Hopefully it works out when you quit your job, because then if I'm interested, I can talk to you. But while you work here and we work in the same building, you got the same badge access I got. So if we have a bad relationship day, you got a badge to come in and bring that bad relationship day into the workplace. So you got to protect your brand. You got to protect your earnability in the organization. And you don't want something like that really dragging you down unnecessarily. No. So I want to bring the other things from the chat in really quick so we can catch up, and then let's move on to the next topic. Yes, as far as Bruce says, he says, what if folks love to tell you all the business? It's like once they see the big black guy is friendly, they just want to talk to my face. Wow. Or they want to talk my face off. I'm sorry. And I'm too blunt when I'm not interested in the office BS. I'm going to take a swing at that first. People do what you allow. That is the simplest thing. So it is one thing to be friendly. You can be friendly, but you can also set an expectation that I am friendly, but I am also about my business. I don't care if you're a fast food worker. I don't care if you're an executive of a Fortune 500 company. You set the gatekeeper on what is allowed to come to you and what is not allowed to come to you. It's something as simply as, hey, I appreciate you wanting to share this story with me, but I try not to talk about personal conversation, especially in an open forum in the workplace. Now, if your culture is accepting of that, then maybe you accept that a little bit differently. But if your culture is like, look, if your culture is like, you're going to be penalized for having these types of conversations, or the wrong person may walk by and hear it, and now you're getting called in special meetings, then it's up to you as your professional brand keeper to make sure that you're protecting your brand and not being associated with that gossiping, that cattiness, that BS conversation 24/7 while you're in the workplace. That's the first thing. The second thing is from the perspective of how to dissuade somebody from those things. Conversation is a very fluid interaction between people. Some people can talk forever and never let a person talk, but they only feel they're only capable of doing that because there are buying signs that they are seeing to keep that conversation going. So if you're nodding your head while they're talking and you're engaged and you're giving them the signs that you're interested, yes, tell me more, then they're going to continue to tell you more. So it's also about understanding the posture and the body language that you're presenting, in which you can start to shut down a conversation before it even starts. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, well, let me get back to what I need to get done before we get too involved in this conversation. It sounds like a good story, but I got to get back to what we need to get done. So that's the thing that I would do.
Yeah, no, that's a good answer, Billy. I think you knocked that one out of the park. If I was to add anything to it, is a lot of the times, Bruce, yeah, you're going to find yourself in that position, and as Billy said, it is a lot that what you control, and I find myself in that position, times. But how I've been able to check that is, when somebody brings something to me, especially if it's about personal stuff that's related to other employees, and a lot of the times being a general manager or leader, you're going to hear about some of this stuff, whether it's from HR, whether it's just some office politics. And when somebody chooses to share that with you, you just say, I'm not interested in that kind of stuff. Let's keep it work related, right? That's how I've been able to kind of push it off to the side, but still keeping it, professional and still being friendly about it. Like if it's, a guy named Jim comes to me like, Antoine, did you hear about that? What happened to this person the other night and this and this and that? Jim, don't share that with me. Don't share that with me in the office, man. And then go about your business. And Jim would understand that that's not the place to go with you within the workplace.
Right.
But you're still being friendly and you're still being a person that Jim feels comfortable to come and have that sort of a conversation, although you won't entertain it.
Yeah, no, that does, and it sets that boundary. It just sets the precedence for how you're going to address me. When we're here professionally, we're professionally. And it's funny because you take that same circumstance with Jim, where I had that coworker where we were friends outside, we became friends outside of work, but we were professional within work, where it literally made a common level of respect for us, like within the workplace. We knew that anything we did personally outside of work wasn't going to be brought into work and be like, oh, well, I seen Jim doing this. I seen Jim doing the electric slide at the club. Like, come on, no. We were both almost at that point invested in each other's individual brand and realizing because of our network connectivity, because we were connected, any impact to their brand was an impact to my brand, and any impact to my brand was an impact to their brand. So I think people are respectful of that and will genuinely appreciate. The challenge is that we have been conditioned to believe that if we don't show interest, then we are not being friendly. No, we can show interest at the appropriate time. But if it's not the appropriate time, it has nothing to do with how friendly you are. It has everything to do with how you are protecting your brand and keeping the association of the relationship in a positive light for you, and even if the person doesn't want it, for them as well. There's some other things here that I want to bring in. Nepotism network.
Yes.
Do you see that question there, Antoine?
I do. I think it's a great question.
Go ahead, jump it.
Yeah. What's up, Antoine? I'm a very driven person. I'm not scared of challenges and obstacles. So I'm always willing to go beyond my primary duties. I tend to clash with those who only care about the bare minimum or less. How can I avoid this without compromising my own values? Yes, nepotism network. That is a very good question. It is hard because a lot of the times when you're growing up, when you are that person that really does care and you're trying to be the example within the organization, it's hard not to want to deal with people who don't carry their weight, right? You're the person that steps out and says, oh, okay, well, I'll take the extra shift, or you know what, I'll take this extra assignment. And then when you have somebody who always takes the minimum or they're dragging a team behind, it's very difficult to not want to be almost distant to that person or be very hard on that person if you're managing that person. I think the biggest thing that I would say nepotism network is, to treat it as this. If you are not the manager of that person, what you need to do is continue to do your job. If you want to take the leadership route, is encourage this person to do more. And encourage them in a nice, appropriate way versus kind of the distance passive. I've done the distance path before earlier on in my career, and that just doesn't work. But the encouragement and being a leader to say, hey, you know what, this will help you in the long run. Or if you try to help them yourself and they're showing, the ability to want or the will to want to learn from you, then I think that's a positive leadership trait, and it will probably help that person. But, at the end of the day, it's not your responsibility to kind of be that person that gets down on the other people. It's your responsibility to be in control of yourself, right, within the corporate world. Right. And it's very hard to have that mixed nepotism network, but just know that it's your control over yourself versus worrying about what this person is doing in the corporate world. I know I was long-winded on that one, sir, but I hope that gave you a bit of a better indicator on how you should approach that sort of situation within the workforce, my man.
I agree with everything you said, Antoine. And the only thing I would add to that from the beginning perspective is, and not even add to it, that I would, my 2 cents that I would add to it, it would be if somebody's work ethic who does the bare minimum and is trying to do the least amount of work for the most amount of money, we'll call it, or the maximum amount of money. If that is their work ethic, sometimes you have to be able to allow them to be their own demise and not get so caught up and so vested in the fact that they're not pulling their own weight that you get yourself caught up in and distracted from what you're trying to execute on. And now they're not only their own demise, they're now your demise because the arguments that you've had. And I actually have had an experience in corporate America where a person and I got into like an argument on the floor in front of people, and people kind of had to get in between us. And this was very early in my professional career, thank God. But the person was very dismissive to me when we were talking, and they were like, man, go sit down. And I was like, who the, like, you're talking to who? Because I was still young, I was still immature, and I didn't lack the mental capacity to respond to that appropriately. Now, if somebody's dismissive and is like, man, go sit down, I'll be back. I'll be back. I might have to write and delete an email 6 times, but this will not be the end of that conversation. Whereas before I was very confrontational, like, who you telling to sit down? Like almost to the point, like, why don't you make me go and sit down? Now we're getting ready to be into a physical altercation, but their lack of professionalism, I allowed, instead of that to be their demise and being that person who says, okay, I see right now is not a good time to speak to you. I'll speak to you at a time when it's better, where we can both respect each other professionally. But right now, I don't want to disrespect you. You have a good day, and walk away and show that I'm able to maintain that professionalism. I allowed that person to risk my demise with their inability to be professional. Now, we overall got over it and then had a much better professional relationship. But that's what I mean by investing so much energy and attention to what somebody else is not doing that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. So I hope that answers your question. Great advice.
Can I add on to that, Billy?
Yeah, absolutely.
And one other thing, so you just got to remember that not everybody is going to have the same amount of care as you're going to have, and that's going to be very difficult to understand. Even just think about, and I don't know if you ever played sports, but think about on the football team where if you played football, Billy, where every summer there's always a fight between the guys on the football team. And typically that's because, you have that person that's, lagging behind, knowing that they have the ability and capability to do something, but they're causing the entire team to run those extra wind sprints, right? And then, you just have the people who care, like, dude, I'm sick of running these 20, 100-yard dashes, right? And then somebody goes into that person's face and then there's a physical altercation, right? You just have to understand that not everybody's going to care as much as you do about that, and you just really have to, pump the brakes a bit and take a distance and worry about yourself. But it's hard. It's very hard to do, especially if you are fully bought in and you want the best and you want excellence. If you're a manager in that situation, that's when you just have to go through the appropriate route to make sure that your team is as good as you want it to be. Yeah, and if that person is somebody who's dragging the team down, you don't want to waste your energy and have sleepless nights because this person isn't performing. You want to do what you need to do early on so that you can have those nights where you can sleep. And that's how I typically would handle that in a management position. But you always got to think about this. There's always going to be somebody that's on the team that's going to be that D player. And if you're willing to accept what that person brings to the table, and if he's a good person to work with as part of that team, you just got to accept it. Everybody's not going to be A players, unfortunately. I know we want that, but it's just not the case.
Right. Perfect world thinking. So let's move into the next area as far as becoming irreplaceable in the corporate workplace. One of the areas that I have seen, and I have probably personally struggled with in the early parts of my career, was the area of tunnel vision, where we become so focused that all we can see are our objectives and goals that are directly in front of us. And in some ways, that's helpful, right? You got to be able to focus on your goals in order to achieve them. But from the other perspective of that, when you start focusing in on only your goal, you start to lose the peripheral vision of the non-tangibles, like what relationships do you need to make on the way to this goal? What type of impacts can you create on the way to this goal that will help you excel or propel you faster towards the goal? Those are the things that you lose in tunnel vision. But because I come from a background of IT recruiting and seeing how technology has changed from the time that I was an IT recruiter, even while I was doing recruiting to today, one of the areas of tunnel vision is that we try to stay, I call it tunnel vision, but we try to stay in our area of expertise. Like, this is what I'm good at, and I'm gonna stay right here. So let's use something like DOS. When computers started, there was the DOS programming. So if you understood DOS programming, you could have became an expert at DOS programming. However, then operating systems came out. Then software suites came out. And all these other things came out that helped us with our productivity. So now people know how to use Word, people know how to use Excel, PowerPoint, all these other different tools. If all you did was focus on DOS programming, and that's where you're at today is DOS programming, yeah, you got left behind somewhere. So you could be the world's best expert in DOS programming. However, unfortunately, the world has moved on. And so that tunnel vision mentality, what it can do is it can cause you to be an expert in an area that will expire or become extinct. And so for me, tunnel vision is a critical component to really try to fight off, focus when you need to focus, but fight off in the long, big picture of what it is you're trying to do, which is become irreplaceable. In order to become irreplaceable, you need to have something that is going to be called agility. You need to be agile, being able to shift and pivot on turns. I mean, any football player like Antoine. So Antoine, I never played football. I don't know why everybody thinks I played football. I played like leisurely, but I know a lot of it because I mean, I went to a school that was really known for football.
Yep.
But any good football player that's reading coverage on defense or a running back, they're able to be agile and make turns sharp turns and cuts to get to openings on the field and hopefully avoid tackles. And so when it comes to the professional world, you have to be agile. The world is constantly changing. There are new technologies introduced daily. And when you don't take the time to buy in because you're so invested in what you know, that means that you have now stifled your own growth and you're not going to get the expansion that you need in order to really make yourself irreplaceable in the workplace. Antoine, what do you think?
Yeah, I think one of those things is it comes down to this, right? It's important to remain agile because there's constant change, Billy. And if you have tunnel vision, you're going to miss that change, right? If you think about S&P 500 companies, I believe in the 1960s, I read a statistic that, the average age for an S&P 500 company was about 60 years. If you go down to 2020, that statistic is less than 20 years now, right? So companies are changing, things are coming, people are dying, things need to be repositioned. And if you have tunnel vision, you're going to miss the boat and you're going to find out that your skill set is no longer going to be needed, right? So you really have to make sure that you remain open to take on additional tasks when those opportunities to do so, while also, still learning your DOS if you want to become a master and it hasn't been a master in that. We're still, doing that on your own time, but you still have to continue to pick up traits and skill sets as the company continues to change and not have that tunnel vision, my man.
Right. Evolution, really, it's about evolving.
It is, man.
Bob said something here as far as the 80-20 rule rings through. Average performers are average, spend energy elsewhere. Ooh, yeah. Bob, you're somewhere down in the conversation. I'm not even going to tell you, but average, whoo, that's a scary place. You don't want to be there because a lot of the investment doesn't take place in average. I mean, you can look at any technologies that companies use to better their performance or make their workforce more efficient. They don't say, let's go and find the most average, mediocre technologies that we can implement to get the most average, mediocre results. There was actually, when I was an IT recruiter, there was this place that had amazing sandwich names, and a coworker of mine and I would always joke about this place because I remember when I went there and I looked at the menu, I was like, man, that sandwich name sounds amazing. I want that. And then we got back to the office and it was like, how's your sandwich? He's like, this is a mediocre sandwich. I was like, my sandwich is pretty mediocre as well. I'm like, how do you have these amazing names for sandwiches and great descriptions, wonderful marketing, but you have a mediocre product? Like, come on. Like, I really wanted to believe in you because there were so many other names that I wanted to try. And the same thing for our personal brand. Billy Wroe, of First Wroe, Antoine Wade of Black Heights. How can you have these powerful titles and these powerful visions and then produce subpar mediocre content? They can't go in hand. And if you really want to have a powerful brand, whether on YouTube, whether in the professional world, and whether in the personal world, then you need to make sure that your product, which is you, backs up what the brand represents. I'll leave that one at that.
For sure. He was preaching on that one.
I'm telling you, those sandwiches were really disappointing. I'll shoot this one over to you to move on to the topic of confidence versus arrogance. So really the attitude that comes with making yourself irreplaceable. What do you have as far as pro tips to add to that particular part of the package of becoming irreplaceable in the workplace?
You know what it is, right? I think specifically you have to know what confidence is and you have to know what arrogance is. If you have a clear definition of what those is, you're going to see that, having confidence is having a belief in yourself that carries throughout what your mission is in the organization or your goals are within the organization. And arrogance is, a combination of confidence, but also having some sort of superior attitude that you're better than everybody else. And that's something that you find in today's corporate world a lot, but you want to avoid to be that person because a lot of the times those are the people that get tripped up over their lifetime within their career. So know the definition, what those are, right? And, if you're a true leader, you're not going to be arrogant. You are not going to be arrogant because, that's the least thing from humbleism. That's why I didn't come on this show tonight, Billy, to, describe all accolades and things like that when you told me to introduce myself. I typically like for others to introduce me versus me talking on my own. But it's one of those things where you just have to refrain from being arrogant, because that is going to create a perception about you that you don't want to others to have. And as we talked about earlier within the show, perception, what people's perception of you is has a lot to do with controllable behaviors. And if you are confident and don't display arrogance by showing that you are better and superior than other people, that perception is going to be very, very positive. If it's not, then it's going to be negative.
Right. You know, and it's funny because the perception of confidence is that it's approachable. Like, man, they're confident, and it exudes from them, and I want some of that. So I'm going to approach them and ask them, what's your secret? There's a guy in the chat named Ragu. He has a sauce. What's your secret of your sauce? Like, that is that confidence. But when you start slipping into that area of arrogance is it's a non-approachable characteristic, because people don't want to go to people who make them feel stupid, who make them feel less than, who make them feel inadequate. You know, and it's funny in today's society where everything can be politicized and everything can be racialized. And so I've had people in back conversations where they're like, hey, you know, is this person, are they racist? And I'm like, no, why would you say that? And they're like, well, the way they talk to me, they're very condescending, and oh no, they're not racist. They're just a jerk in that perspective. They think that they're smarter than everybody. Nobody can know more than them. And because I'm able to identify that for them, I shift them from the lens of, wow, this is a racist, to, oh no, this is somebody who's arrogant, and this is how arrogant people are. It has nothing to do with the race that you are. I was like, you can be the same race as them. They would think that they were smarter than you, and that you have very little to add to what their understanding of the known universe is. So you're right, that confidence is a very positive trait, to where people want to be around you, and they want to be under your established leadership. Whereas arrogance, people are like, especially if you're not in leadership yet, if you have that arrogance where you're a know-it-all and you can't even listen to other people's opinions or insights that they want to offer in a conversation. If you have that, you're probably not going to get to the height of leadership that you want to get into. And even if you do, the company that you will be in will be the same type of arrogant people that you were to get there. And that's why they're like, yeah, he's arrogant like us, let's bring him up. She's arrogant like us, let's bring her up. So you really, if you're going to be an effective leader, you have to find out about how to make yourself approachable. And arrogance is the fastest path on removing your approachability as a leader.
Hey, Billy, can I add on to that as well?
Absolutely.
You know, arrogance is a negative trait of a leader. And to be honest with you, people who are in leadership positions that are arrogant are typically aren't leaders. They're pretty much managers, right? Right. And what I would also say is this, and I don't know if this is your experience, Billy, but this has been my experience. A lot of times companies create the arrogance in people. And what I mean by that is this: if your company is, you know, a service company that is responsible for delivering projects, and, you know, you have some difficult software typically in your implementation, if you're calling them the same person all the time to help you out of these nasty situations, it can create some arrogance in a person, because they're going to say, oh, this company needs me. And they're going to start to build a mentality in their head that they can do no wrong, and that they are better than everybody else, because companies or the people within inside the company are choosing to go to that person always to bail them out. So we got to remember, as managers and leaders, that although we have superstars on our team, do not be the person that's always going to that person to help out on every single situation. Otherwise, you're going to be creating a potential disaster by, you know, causing somebody to become arrogant within the organization, my man.
Right. No, I agree with that. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate to it. But I do agree with what you're saying. You don't put all your eggs in one basket, because then if that basket decides it doesn't want to be a basket anymore, now your eggs are on the ground. But from the other perspective, when you want to become irreplaceable, you want to be known as that person in your organization, the person that can provide solutions, the person that can interpret information and articulate it well. You
Absolutely.
want to be that person because that is a part of building that irreplaceable mentality. However, going back to what Antoine was saying, you as that individual wanting to be that have to make sure you keep that ego in check. If that's male or female, keep that ego in check. So that you don't have to worry about you don't have to worry about arrogance slipping in and now contaminating that go-to presence that you do have in your organization.
Absolutely.
So I just wanted to play a little devil's advocate there, because I actually, in the last organization I was in, I was that go-to person because my team was so small. It was like only a couple of us. So I ended up being by default the go-to person, and then showed, hey, no, I really should be the go-to person. But even in that, the interactions, when there were challenging interactions with my leadership or my manager, that I always had to make sure that it wasn't like, well, you need me. I had to be like, okay, it's not about the fact that you need me. It's about, I don't appreciate the way that you're speaking to me. And inevitably I ended up leaving that organization. But when I left, I didn't leave in the sense of, hey, you know what? I'm out of here. I don't have to deal with this. Good luck. We'll see how well you do when I leave. No, I was very professional. I was like, hey, I told you at the very beginning of this journey that I would never leave you high and dry, regardless of the situation. So I'm not leaving you high and dry. You got 3 weeks of however you want to utilize me, whether that's writing more standard operating procedures, doing additional training for the people who will remain, whatever it may be. You have 3 weeks of my time in order to get what you need. But then after that, we have to part ways. And I knew that it was going to be mentally, I knew it was going to be a significant hit to the knowledge base and the ability in the department, because I brought a lot of stuff to the table. However, I didn't come with this arrogance of, and if you got a problem with that, then, you know, I could just leave today and we could see how well you do without me. That's where that arrogance would have slipped in, and really more that's an ego, and the ego is really being used as a mask to cover up the hurt of rejection. Yep. So well, that's all the psychology behind it. We'll go into that another conversation. Let's jump into the chat really quick. It looks like Bruce Gatewood said, big me, little you mentality, hard people to work with. Absolutely. Yep. Bob McKinley says, each of us has the picture in our heads of Mr. or Mrs. Arrogant and Mr. or Mrs. Confident. I keep those two pictures in my head at all times to keep the balanced approach / view. And then nepotism agrees with that. Great advice, Bob. Antoine, moving on to the next thing, because we touched on it a little bit about network and isolation. I want to kind of give you that ball, put that ball in your court when it comes to making yourself irreplaceable. How much does I would say, how much does our network play a part in becoming irreplaceable?
Yeah, your network is big into becoming irreplaceable. And what I mean by that, within organizations, there are many, structures. There are many organizations inside organizations. And, the more you know people, not only in your organization, but outside of your organization, the stronger your network is going to, meaning the stronger your network is going to be, the more you're going to be difficult to get rid of within the company. And I don't want to use the word irreplaceable, because everything is irreplaceable. And I think that even the most valued people, for instance, in sports teams, is always irreplaceable, whether it's, via injury, or whether it's, contract negotiations, or, death at some points in times, right? Everything and everybody is irreplaceable. But in order for you to create a strong brand for yourself that, resonates very well with the company, and they appreciate your value within the company, you want to be that person that it has a strong network, right? And you also want to be the person that people want to be around. It goes back to that perception that we actually talked about earlier. You want to be the person that's likable. You want to be the person that's knowledgeable. You want to be the subject matter expert within your field, so that everybody within the company knows about you. And if something happens, let's just say an acquisition happens within your organization, because I've been through tons of acquisitions within the last 3 years, 9 or so, and we're typically the acquiring company. If you have a strong network, you're probably going to be one of those people that we will find a place for you if it's not within the organization that you're currently in, within our company. But if you're a
Right.
person that don't have a strong network, typically we don't have time when we're going through these acquisitions and placing people, because that's done due to due diligence period. You're probably not going to have an area at all where you are going to be replaced. So I would say the network is very important, my man, especially being in a company that has acquired over 9 companies within the last 3 years as the acquiring company. I get to see it. And if networking plays a huge part into us keeping certain people around, my man.
Right. No, I agree with that wholeheartedly, because I've been in acquisitions, and you start finding, and this goes into, I mean, literally goes right into what Bob was talking about earlier about that average. Average is probably the most dangerous place to be in an organization, because as acquisitions take place, as cuts need to be made, the average people don't know really where they're at in the average. So if I have the top 10% and the bottom 10%, we know where they're at. They're in the top and the bottom. So if I need to cut 20%, I need to cut that 10% that's in the bottom. But then now I jump into the 11th percentile, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th percentile. And if you've been playing around in average, floating with the flow, not knowing where you're at, you might be in that next 10th percentile that is going to be cut. And so as an IT recruiter, what we used to look at when we were looking at resumes, and people would be like, oh, you know, why did you leave this particular employer? They're like, oh, you know, there was a layoff. Oh, really? Now I have a specific set of questions I'm going to be asking. How many people were laid off? What was the size of the team? If the size of the team is 140 people and 2 people were laid off, I hate to break the bad news to you, that's probably not a layoff. That's called getting rid of the fat.
Yep.
So average is a very dangerous place to be. And one of the ways to get caught up in being in the average is not working on your network. One of the key takeaways I would want for you to take from tonight when it comes to networking is that once you go through an interview process and a company decides, yes, we want to have you on our team, you are now on the opposite side of the firewall, the opposite side. So now all the stuff that was keeping you out before, you're on the other side of that. There's no gatekeeper keeping you out. Now, don't go anywhere you ain't supposed to be while you're on the side of the firewall, but you should be actively looking to expand your network, intentionally looking to expand your network. And I recently had this experience where I was talking to my former supervisor, and was like, hey, you know, I'm trying to really figure out how to become more organically a leader in this space. What are the things I need to do to get stretch assignments and make myself stand out while I'm in this organization? And so some of the feedback that was given to me was, you need to foster relationships with these people. These are the key people you need to foster relationships with. Fortunately, like 2 out of the 4 people I already have fostered those relationships with. Then not only do you need to foster those relationships, now you need to execute within the stretch assignments that you're seeking. So I can't say, again, I'm this Billy Wroe brand in the organization that I'm in, and if you come to me with this stretch assignment, I'm going to help you with my level of expertise or my skill set, and then not execute, because that's going to leave a sour taste in their mouth. It's like when you go and pour that bowl of cereal, you know, you got that big old Friday mixing bowl of cereal. You pour milk all over it, and then you take a bite and you find out the milk is spoiled. Now you done ruined a whole box of cereal and done dirty the dish. You got to clean dishes. So, it's important to network. And I see countless times where people look at me and they're like, man, you really get along, and you twine yourself into these corporate relationships to where people know who you are and you stand out. And then they don't do that. And then, like, when the layoffs come or the cuts come or whatever it may be, when those things come, they don't have the network to reach out to. Hey, do you know anybody that is looking to hire? Hey, do you know anybody that has other opportunities within the organization? They don't have those things because of the fact that they haven't taken the time to develop that network. And you also touched really quick before I give you the mic back, Antoine, because now I'm over here being long-winded. You touched on everything is replaceable. And that really is the concept of tonight's talk, is that how to becoming irreplaceable in today's workplace doesn't mean that you're not going to be replaced. But what it does mean is that the skills and the talents that you have developed and have carried with you, those things come with you. So if you've been developed at the corporate level, at the executive level, at the manager level, those things come with you. And so you can take those skill sets that are marketable and insert them into other organizations, insert them into your own business ventures. And that is what is actually the not replaceable part. They can't necessarily take back the skills that they have given you, or you can't give back the skills that you have developed in your corporate venture. And LeBron being the greatest player in the NBA, and I hate to say that because I'm not a LeBron fan, but being the greatest player in the NBA right now, I ain't gonna get into any debates.
And he's still replaceable.
He's still replaceable because guess what? He left Cleveland. They didn't dissolve the team.
Yep.
He went to Miami, played there. He left Miami. They didn't dissolve Miami. Came back to Cleveland. He won a championship. He left Cleveland, went to LA. They didn't dissolve the team. And when he retires from the NBA, and more than likely retire from the Lakers, the same way Kobe did, great player in the NBA, they didn't dissolve the team. So we're all replaceable at some point, no matter how great, no matter how wonderful, how charismatic, how confident you are, how non-arrogant you are. At some point, we are all replaceable because the show continues to go on with or without us. Anything you want to add to that, Antoine?
No, brother, you nailed that one, man.
That's all
you, brother.
I want to touch on two more areas before we begin to wrap. But the area of preparation when it comes to being irreplaceable, I think, and this kind of ties a little bit into the networking aspect, but preparation is a key area of establishing an irreplaceable mentality in today's workplace. How have you, Antoine, been able to engage your preparation to be ready for the opportunities that you seek or that you actually attain in your professional career?
Well, I talk about them. And what I mean by that is I talk to my leaders about what's next that I want to do within my career. So putting out those feelers out there certainly helps. And I'm going to use an example, right? When I first came into the company that I work for right now, I got an opportunity to basically start out of the country. And and that was my first time ever going to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I'm talking about Malaysia, by the way. I think many of you already probably know the story already. But I started there. My first day was overseas. I was leading a team, and we were just, kicking off our annual meeting to strategize about what I'm going to be doing and how I'm going to lead the team. Long story short, I came back after that visit, which was a week. And I threw feelers out there like, wow, I love Kuala Lumpur. I love Malaysia. People, they were great. I had a very good time. The majority of my team over there, maybe I have an opportunity to spend more time over there, do some more travel and so forth and things like that. And then we realized that our general manager was going to be retiring pretty soon. And with me, having those feelers out there and knowing exactly some of the challenges that the team was having and was going to have, I positioned myself, Billy, to say this. Well, I'm supposed to be moving to Austin at this point in time because I was supposed to be moving from Atlanta to Austin. I said, instead, why don't I move to Kuala Lumpur instead to be around my team in that part of the world? That's where the majority of them are anyway, in Malaysia and India. So it just rung a bell within my boss's head. So that's what it's about. It's about being prepared, understanding what it is that you want to do and put those feelers out there to your leaders about what you see as your career path next. And not only that, another story is my current role that I'm in right now, which is a area sales director leading a small team over some of our strategic accounts. I said this to my boss after I was in Kuala Lumpur and he came to visit one time. I just said at dinner at night, I said, hey, Joe, one day I want to try this. I want to try my an opportunity at sales, or I want an opportunity within the sales organization. I certainly think it's an area where if I want to be a CEO, I have to challenge myself to do that, to build on my communication skills, to become more persuasive, to become a better leader. And that resonated with him. So when the opportunity came up on my way back from Malaysia, a huge opportunity came up and they said, Antoine, are you wanting to go into sales? Here's your opportunity right now. And I raised my hand. I said, yes. So yeah, you really have to be prepared, but tell the people within your organization, especially your leaders who have who have an ability to make a decision on you, what it is that you want to pursue. And that is showing that you are committed to the company. One, you are really bought into your career development and growth, and that you want to stretch yourself, right? So I think it's important. You have to be prepared to do that and talk to your leaders in order for you to get a lot of those opportunities, Billy.
Right. No, man, you're buzzing in my head right now with what you're talking about. And to simplify it from my perspective, I really what you're talking about is having intentional conversations.
Oh, absolutely.
Planting the seeds and then letting those seeds grow through your execution in your role. And that's one of the things that I've always thought when it comes to preparation. Bob actually talked about this in a conversation where we were having a conversation about how he was always practicing for his next role while he was in his current role. And I look at it as the actions that you do in your current role are the interview for the other roles that you will have in your organization. And I think for you and I, because we're very driven individuals, where we would see if I've been in a role for like 5 years and it wasn't a new role that required me to ramp up and gain knowledge and acumen in, if I've been in it for 5 years, there is something that I'm doing that is keeping me in the seat that I'm in that I need to change so that I can promote out of the seat that I'm in, because I'm accustomed to being promoted. And I don't say that arrogantly. I don't say that like, oh yeah, they promote me. I'm saying it from the perspective of that is what I have created as the normalization of my career path. So when I go into an organization, I realize that no matter if I'm in the mailroom seat or if I'm in, the call center seat or I'm in the analytical seat, no matter what seat I'm in, my mind is always on what is the next opportunity. And it's that intentional conversation that you have with people that brings your name to the top of the pile or to the front of their mind when they're having conversations on what's next for the organization. So I'm with you on that.
And Billy, you nailed that one too. You said your current job is an interview for your next role. Well, one, you will not get the opportunity to do the things that you really want to do if you're not a person that has had success in that prior role, right? Or a person that they see that has an ability to take on something different. So you're absolutely right. The current job that you're doing is certainly an interview for your potential next role. Absolutely, my man.
Yeah. The next question I want to move on to, or the next topic I want to move on to, is really at the end of the day, I think everything that we have spoken about tonight has been about your individual brand. And Bob McKinley has used that term as well, your individual brand. So you can work for Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola has their corporate brand. You're used to seeing the red cans, you're used to seeing the logos, things like that. However, we as individuals have an individual brand. How critical, I don't even want to say important, how critical is our individual brand when it comes to being irreplaceable in the workplace?
Well, let me just say this, Billy. I think perception is the pilot to reality, or either the co-pilot to reality. And what I mean by that is this: is your individual brand is based on what the perception that people have of you. And again, that's about, what they feel from you, what they see from you, and what they hear from you. A lot of the times you can create that perception in people's heads. So if you went into meetings all the time saying that, hey, I'm a tough person when it comes down to negotiation, people are going to remember that. And they're going to say, you know what? If something comes up where we need a tough negotiator, I'm going to say, you know what, Antoine, he's a tough negotiator because he always talk about it all the time, right? So it is, your perception is the co-pilot to the overall reality, and you can control that by saying things like that and saying what you want to be known for within your organization. But you have to be consistent with it when you do that. So if I'm Antoine and I'm known to solve some of the toughest customer support problems, I typically say that in my introduction to leaders and other people within the organization, so that they remember that about me. But branding is very important within that corporate world, Billy. It is probably the most important thing, and you want to have that positive brand, just like if it was a store brand, right? Everything pretty much has a brand on it, and in corporate America, you want to have a very good brand in order for you to get the opportunities that you want to get, in order for you to move up within the ranks, my man. And that brand is really dictated about the perception of what people have as you, man.
I like that. The perception is the co-pilot to reality. Ooh, you ain't lying. It'll fly the plane. It'll fly the plane straight into the wrong direction. So no, I definitely believe that. Like, you can't have two things, your reality and your perception, going in two different directions. They're going to pretty much fly together. And even if perception takes the wheel and flies in one direction, if it doesn't match with reality, going back to being a good negotiator. When you said that, it reminded me of the story. You probably are aware. Do you remember when Staples made that government contract? I forget what state they made it with, where they were selling everything for 1 penny. Do you remember that?
I think I remember that a while ago. Yeah.
So basically, I'll send me and I'm going to get us the business, and I'm a great negotiator. And you, based off of analytics, say, okay, they purchased these things in this frequency, and you change the price of a box of tissue from $2 a box or $1.99 a box to 1 cent. And now all of a sudden, people are ordering tissue for the apocalypse. and not only is it costing profits and money because they're buying outside of their purchase patterns. Now, instead of a truck being able to bring like 1 case of tissue and the other things that have been ordered, now you have diesels and pallets and freight being delivered that's just tissue that was all paid for at 1 cent a pop. There's not enough tissue boxes in that vehicle to pay for the cost of the vehicle. So that when you allow that perception to move from co-pilot to the pilot, what happens is now when reality shows up, they're like, why the heck did we send this guy in here to negotiate? He done put us in a contractual obligation that we are now not receiving any benefits from.
Yep.
So that's what I started thinking about when you allow perception to fly and reality just takes a back seat. Man, it sucks when reality is found out. It's like reality. They look at reality like, what are you doing here? I let perception fly. My bad. So I want to begin to close, but I want to give you, Antoine. I know we talked about the format of the show, but I want to give you, is there any other areas that come to mind for you when it comes to being irreplaceable in today's workplace? Are there any other areas that come to mind that are really important? Because I have one more area that I want to explore.
No, but I'm going to drop some game, right? And I like to talk about this because I've been in many corporate meetings over the last week, and important meetings. And one of the things that you just want to make sure that you do within corporate meetings is typically, and this is for the people who are just coming to corporation, is be on time and be early, right? You want to be serious and engage in those conversations, even if you don't know why you're there. Be serious about it. Act like you care about what's going on. You want to listen more than you talk, right? Meaning that timing is everything. When you do choose to speak up, make sure it's not over anybody. And when you're in these meetings, I know there's always a challenge and a problem. That's why you're meeting, right? But come to the meeting with solutions, right? You want to come to the meeting with solutions that you pretty much have already thought of, so that you don't seem like you are the problem, right? Or
right.
It's pointing at the problem, but you may be the problem, right? And
right.
The last thing, and I said this in one of our other intersections, is to assume positive intent, Billy, right? Because in those meetings, you are going to hear things sometimes that may be about your organization. You're going to hear things that may seem like it's a personal attack on you, but assume positive intent, my man. That was all that I wanted to add into the show, Billy. Nothing else that I wanted to top on. I just wanted to throw that little bonus out there about corporate meetings, my man.
Boom, boom, corporate meetings. Hey, that is something that is difficult, especially even in today's technology-driven world where some corporate meetings take place via telephone, via Skype, whatever it may be. It's hard sometimes to be engaged. So when you say listen more, is you got to like listen more intently than you would if you were all sitting in the room, where obviously if I'm like, playing Plants vs. Zombies on my cell phone, somebody's going to see that if I'm sitting in the physical room. But if I'm on this telephone and I'm like playing Plants vs. Zombies until I hear Billy and it's like, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, can you repeat that? And if that's what it is, every time my name comes up, at some point people are going to be like, why does Billy even get invited to these calls? Because he doesn't listen until you say Billy, and then you have to repeat everything you said up to and before Billy. So you're right, and I think that's an important game. I think maybe that's what we should start calling it. We should say we about to drop some game. I like that. We're gonna drop some game. Don't look past. Got him. The only other thing that before we close that I wanted to add, and I have over here to my right, or there's two things actually. I think if I was considering what the pro tips would be, the first thing is again, your brand is critical, and part of the critical nature of your brand is the preparation of it. Whether that again goes back to networking, interacting, having those intentional conversations that Antoine spoke about. Also, one of the areas that is recently, and well, I've always had this as a skill set, but it recently paid off, is having my resume ready. So going back to that confidence versus arrogance, it's one thing to talk about what you do in arrogant tone. Well, I've done this and I've accomplished that and all these different things. However, with your resume, that is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to talk about what you've done so people can assess if you are a good fit for what they are looking to fill. Yes. And having in the recent weeks, having my resume up to date and ready actually put me in a position to be able to apply for an opportunity at work that, had I not had my resume ready, the time between notification of an opportunity and deadline for the opportunity, if my resume wasn't up to date and wasn't up to speed and wasn't ready to go, after I got done filling out the application, I would not have had the time to update my resume with relevant and meaningful information for the opportunity. But because I had that done, I was able to finish an application and attach my resume. So it's about your brand, but your brand's preparation, the preparation to be ready to present your brand, to know what your brand is, that is essential to becoming irreplaceable. Not just, and that's why I said in the workplace, not in your company, but in the workplace, because there's going to be opportunities that present themselves, and sometimes the only reason you've missed it is because you were not ready beforehand. So that was the one tool, and then the other one was going back to what Bob said, that average. And Bob has been in very high leadership roles where he's like saying, this is a person who's in a high leadership role who's saying, hey, if this is an average person, don't invest your energy there, because if you're investing your energy just simply in the average, it can be lost and give you the same results had you not invested energy there. Focus on that 80-20 rule, focus your efforts on the 20%, and allow them to be the people who germinate and promote that vision to the 80% and bring up those people who are willing to join the 20%. That is the most dangerous area to be in. I have been in the average before, and the result of that is I've been let go when the cuts came. So that's a dangerous area to be in. And if you want to be irreplaceable, realize that being above average, even if they close the entire company, it's the people who were above average in the organization that immediately find other opportunities. When you're like, oh, they're not hiring, there's no jobs, there's no this, there's no that. It's those people who are above the average that find those jobs and beat out the people who are simply average. So those are the professional pro tools, dropping some game on y'all. The professional tools, the pro tools and tips that I wanted to share for tonight's conversation. I appreciate you rocking with me today, Antoine. I'm looking forward to a couple more of these. Maybe we'll do these, like, I don't know, once a month or something, just some development. But I want to also give kudos to the chat for taking time to invest in yourself, because that is also a part of that preparation. For those who may be out, partying or at a happy hour, you took the time to come to the First Wroe Network today and really work to upskill yourself and make your brand that much stronger. So hats off to you guys. I don't have a hat on, but hats off to you guys for taking that time to invest in yourself so that you can remain above the average. That's all I got for tonight. Antoine, do you have anything you want to say in closing?
No, my man. I would say one thing, Billy. So yes, a tip that I always like to share with people is the part about the controllable perception. And again, if you understand that there's controllable behaviors, you're going to create a good perception about yourself. And perception is what people see, what people hear, and what people feel from you from an energy perspective. And a lot of that is around controllable behaviors. So that's all I wanted to leave you guys with. Thank you so much for joining us. It feels like a graduate school night in back in the days where it's now time to go home after class and have a beer and enjoy some time with the family and get up the next morning and get it all over again. Do it all over again.
Do it all over again.
Do it all over again, man.
So then with that, I will tell you the next upcoming show that we have on the First Row, the next live show. We had 5 shows live this week. The next live show will actually be on Tuesday. It will be an intersession. That will be understanding compassion fatigue. And that is with the crowd favorite. I call him Cousin Mo, but it's Moses Jenkins. Tune in for that. That's 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time if you're on the East Coast, and you'll have to do all the math in between. Other than that, also with the extension or the extended promotion for Modern Day Mentor for First Row viewers, that is still underway. There's the book Modern Day Mentor is coming out. I'll put that up for you really quick. Modern Day Mentor is soon to be released. The pre-sale actually ended on at the end of February, but as a special offer to First Row viewers, that was extended until the end of March. So March 31st, if you order your copy of Modern Day Mentor, you will get it for the pre-sale price. If you would like more information on that, go ahead and send an email or request an order form from moderndaymentor@firstrow.com. And then last but not least, First Row is about connection, you guys. We want you guys to connect with us. Here is how you get in touch with us, whether it's on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, YouTube, obviously. All of that, you can find us at First Row. If you want to get in touch with me directly, feel free to contact me at billy.rowe@firstrow.com. And Antoine, if you could share your information, where they can find you at, I'll make sure I have it in the description on how to find your channel. But how would they go about connecting with you?
Absolutely. Guys, you can just connect with me on LinkedIn under Antoine Wade. You'll see my big bald head within one of my pictures that's on the LinkedIn profile. Otherwise, you can just contact us through the Black Heights website at https://blkheights.com. And we'll be able to get back with you, and that information will go to me. So thank you guys so much again for joining. Billy, thank you so much for always having me on and sharing your platform with me, and for us collaborating and dropping this game, my man.
Dropping the game. All right. So other than that, if you haven't subscribe to Black Heights. If you haven't subscribed to First Row, subscribe to First Row. Make sure you click the bell so you can be notified when we are live. We're looking forward to bringing more game to you guys on the corporate America, how to thrive in it. But if you haven't already, like this video, share this video. If you like it, share it. If you share it, like it. We are happy to engage with you guys in the live chat, as you can see. We're also happy to engage with you in the comments. I engage for up to the first week of the content, and then after that, we move on to the next growth spurt. So other than that, thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Until the next time we see you on the First Row or we see you on Black Heights, one love, peace, and God bless.